Hey, welcome. So let me ask you something. Have you ever said yes, absolutely, to someone, and then, like, a second later, you get that sinking feeling in your stomach? That feeling of instant regret? Yeah, we've all been there. It's such a common trap. Today, we're going to dig into why we make promises we just can't keep, and, more importantly, how we can actually stop doing it. Okay, so at the heart of this whole habit, you've really got two forces pulling in opposite directions. On one side, you have the allergic reaction. This is when you use a promise almost like a sedative, right? Just to calm a situation down. And on the other side, you have the vaccine, and that's when you treat your word as a real binding commitment. So let's figure out which one is running the show in your life. All right, first things first, let's really get into the problem here. Why do we so often make these promises that we kind of know deep down are pretty hollow? Well, it turns out we're often just using our words as a sort of temporary pain chill. I want you to think of it like this. Someone comes to you, they've got a problem, they're anxious, and to ease their anxiety, or maybe, let's be honest, your own social discomfort, you offer them what our source material calls a promise pill. It's like this verbal dose of relief, but there's no actual action inside. You're not really committing to anything, you're just trying to tranquilize the moment. This quote, wow, it just perfectly nails what it feels like to be on the receiving end, doesn't it? You've given them this little spark of hope, a destination, but the party was never going to happen. You've sent them down a frustrating path to nowhere, and it just leaves them feeling completely let down. And there's actually a bit of science behind why we do this. In that exact moment you make the promise, both of you get a tiny little dopamine hit. It feels good. But what comes after is what the source calls a sugar crash in the relationship. It's this long-term trust deficit that's so much more damaging than whatever awkwardness you were trying to avoid in the first place. But here's the thing about those little promise pills. They are not free. No way. There is a real hidden cost that shows up when that verbal sedative wears off and, well, the bill for your words comes due. I absolutely love this line from our source material. Fake promises really are like counterfeit money. Sure, they might get you a short-term win, a smile, a moment of peace. But people remember. They remember when your words turn out to be worthless. You're essentially trading a tiny moment of convenience for a whole lot of long-term side-eye. And this brings us to a really crucial idea. Credibility, credit. Just imagine that the trust people have in you is like a bank account, and it is not infinite. Every single time you break a promise, you're making a withdrawal. And if you keep doing that, you're going to look one day and find that account is completely empty. And that right there is the real danger. Your reputation isn't something you can just, leave behind in one room. It's your shadow. It follows you absolutely everywhere. So if that shadow starts looking shaky and unreliable, guess what? So do you, in every single part of your life. This is actually bigger than just one personal failing. Every promise we make is a kind of social contract. And when we break them casually, we're slowly chipping away at that invisible glue, that fundamental trust that holds our friendships, our teams, and even our communities together. Okay, so that was all the bad news. A little heavy, I know. But here's the good news. There is a vaccine for this. And the solution is actually incredibly simple. It just takes a little bit of conscious effort. The entire fix, the whole shebang, comes down to this one simple, powerful commitment. Promise only what you know for sure you can and will deliver. That's it. Your word becomes your bond, not your aspirin. And look, this isn't some new age idea from a self-help book. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus was teaching this stuff thousands of years ago. It's all about aligning who you are with what you do. First decide who you want to be, say a reliable person, and then do the things that are necessary to be that person. So, how do you actually put this into practice? Well, instead of that automatic, oh, I'll do it, try something like, let me check on that and I'll get back to you. This simple phrase buy you time to be realistic. Then, and this is key, you have to actually track your commitments. Put them in your phone. And maybe most importantly, just be honest when you don't have the time or the resources. It's okay. Okay, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty of it all. Turning this new mindset into a consistent practice, well, it's like building a muscle. It's going to take some reps, and you need a clear game plan. This chart here really lays out that game plan for you. The big takeaways are on the left. Commit only when you are truly capable. And on the right, the big one to avoid, never ever confuse a good intention with a concrete action. The real goal, the pro move, is to under-promise and then over-deliver. Let's break down that moment of choice because it happens so fast. First, you feel it, right? That social pressure to just agree. The absolute key is step 2. Just pause. Take 2 seconds. That's it. That's enough time to break that reflexive yes habit. And in that pause, do a quick mental check of your calendar, your energy, your actual capacity. Then, and only then, give your real, honest answer.
And here's a super simple daily habit to make this all stick. Every evening, just take 60 seconds, that's all, to review the commitments you made. Did you do it? Great. If not, you have 2 choices. Either do it right then, or go back to the person and honestly close the loop.
So, what is the payoff for all this hard work? What actually happens when you master this stuff? The result is that your yes becomes incredibly, incredibly powerful. When you stop handing out those counterfeit promises, you start building real wealth. And that wealth is trust. You'll feel way less resentment because you're not constantly overcommitted. And you'll start to earn a reputation for solid reliability, not just sweet talk. The result? Your relationships just become deeper and way more authentic. And this, right here, this is the ultimate outcome. When your word has weight, it has gravity. People know that when you say yes, it actually means something. So they listen more closely. They trust you more deeply. Your word becomes a true asset.
And ultimately, this isn't about being rigid or difficult. It's about being free. Every empty promise is a small little debt you carry around with you. When you stop creating those debts, you get to live a lighter, more integrated life that has a lot more genuine wins. So I'll leave you with a final question to think about. Just imagine for a second, what would actually change in your work, in your friendships, in your family, if from this moment forward, every single promise you made was absolutely solid? Because in the end, it all comes down to something this simple. Words are for building things. They build trust, they build relationships, they build projects. So don't promise the bridge if you have no intention of building it. That's all for this explainer. Thanks for tuning in.